Welcome back to Views and Vibes. We're sitting here with two self-published authors, and they're walking you through the whole process of writing your first book and what to do with it after that. Now, I know a lot of people who, when they first start writing, they just think about, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. They're not really thinking about the publishing part of it at first. They're just writing whatever they're writing, whether they're writing in a journal or if they're actually working on an actual book. How much should you take into consideration how you're going to market the book when you're first writing? That's something a lot of first-time writers don't think about, marketing. But how much should you take into consideration how you're going to market the book after you finish writing it?
Well, that's a great question. It depends on what your goal is. Some people write a book and they only want to print 200-300 copies and give it to their family and friends. But if you definitely want to be successful with your book, you need to do your research. I did about 6 months of research before I even
on the topic of
on self-publishing and how to write a book before I even started. So I had my knowledge already about what to do, how to market it. There's a book by John Kramer called 1001 Ways to Market Your Book.
Okay.
So I used a lot of those resources. There's a series by Fern Reese. She has great resources, how to write a book, how to get an agent, how to become a bestseller. So I read all of those books. So I had the knowledge. So I knew what to do. I just did not realize how much work it was involved in the process.
Yes,
I mean, when you're doing everything yourself, you don't really understand the full process. And so I learned a lot about the publishing industry that I didn't know before I started this venture.
Right, right. Yonder.
Okay, well, with me, mine was totally different. I wrote the book and was like, now how am I supposed to get it out of there?
Right, so you already wrote the book. You weren't considering the whole marketing piece.
Wasn't considering the whole marketing. I was just writing the book, but I actually hired a publicist.
Okay.
And that changed the way that I did business, because the publicist started putting me at places that I wasn't normally used to. I do events from beauty salons to barbershops to hair shows.
Right.
And then we got another market, which is the bikers. So I guest speak at places like bike festivals with 650 people there sometimes. All depends on how big the event is. So what we started doing was marketing to places that are already going to have so many thousand folks there. Instead of going somewhere hoping everybody comes see us. Let them come to some place that already has a mission going on, and you get the residuals from that.
Right.
So that's been a whole total different aspect. And I know with self-publishing, most folks can't afford a publicist, but now, as you get along with it, a whole lot of folks,
still can't afford
you'll understand it, but it depends on where you plan to go with this, because one of the things is that has actually been to better me, actually, because it's got me exposure to television. I had my own radio show for 2 years, and that's the work that the publicist did. It wasn't the work, I worked 9 to 5. It wasn't the work that I did. Someone was doing the work. So it was actually worth every dime I paid. And publicists can range from $400 a month to $5,000 a month. But it all depends on where you are, if this is where you are with your book and everything, because I guess I didn't do the first side of it, but I'm glad I did it this way, because it's gotten me to a whole different line of folks to sell books to.
Now, before you can even get to that level of publishing, well, not publishing, but in terms of marketing and doing publicity, you have to get the book in print. So what would you tell somebody who has already written a book and now is ready to put it into, what are the steps? What steps would you tell somebody to go through in order to get the book in print before you even get to the marketing piece?
Well, actually, I started marketing my book before it even came out.
Wow, okay.
And that's what a lot of the experts would tell you. You should start marketing your book before it even comes out. Create a website. Okay. Well, create a website, create a newsletter. If you have expert knowledge in a particular area, like he has erotica, so he could write a newsletter on erotica. He could have a website, and he can already promote that before his book comes
6
out.
months before,
and so, 6 months before, at least 3 to 6 months before. And so when his book comes out, he can just add that to his website. He already has a following with his website, newsletter, that kind of thing, and so that just enhances his platform. You also can give seminars, so if you have expert knowledge in something, you can go out and do speaking engagements, and then the book enhances your expertise. So it just pushes you to the next level. Now, some people do it different. Some people, write the book and then they try to start doing seminars and that kind of thing, which is actually what I did. But after I started doing that, I learned that you should do it the other way. You should, start publicizing yourself first, have a newsletter, have a website, have a following, start giving and speaking engagements, build up your audience, and then your book will just add to what you have already built on, or it will already add to your foundation. And so it makes the process a little easier. But if you have the time and the effort and the dedication, you can do it either way. But I'm happy I did it the way I did it, because I learned a lot more from the experience.
So Yonder, tell me, what are the steps to publishing? After writing.
What I suggest they do first, before they even decide they're going to self-publish, learn what they're going to do first. With self-publishing, they have books out from Kwame Alexander to Dan Pointer. You can name, you just put up in Google, self-publishing. There will be a whole lot, but read everything before you do anything, because there are a whole lot of other scams going on in the net that they say self-publishing. Some of the bigger name companies who will just pull you in and make you pay all this money. You can do a whole lot of it yourself, but you have to read up on it, and because that'll show you how to get your ISBN number, go to Boyker, Library of Congress, the whole 9 yards, because everybody has to get paid. You got to pay Boyker for your ISBN number, you got to pay Library of Congress to get it copyrighted and everything, got to pay somebody to do your front cover, you got to get it edited. But some of the self-publishing guys, most of them will walk you through this process, but I suggest that you read at least 5 of these self-publishing books.
So you've done your research. You've done your research, but people don't know exactly what the steps are. So tell me, from step to step, after you finish writing the book, what's the first step that you do after you've done the research? Now what? I
would suggest buy your ISBN numbers.
Okay.
And you get those from www.boyker.com. Right. Okay. And also go to Library of Congress. Either go on libraryofcongress.com.
To do what?
Library of Congress would basically, what you're doing is copyrighting your book, because you don't want nobody to steal your magnificent idea.
To make sure that you protect your work.
Protect your work. So you go down Library of Congress, they charge you to do everything, of course, but if you're not local, you can go on libraryofcongress.com and mail it in. If you're local to Washington, D.C., Maryland area, go right to Library of Congress, and they'll put it in this big plastic bag, and they give you a piece of paper right that day and say it's all done, and you can go ahead and start marketing and everything.
So protection's the first one,
Protection, yes. Okay. And along the way, you have to think of your book covers and everything, because book covers will sell the book, basically.
So your layout,
and your marketing, editing. So
editing,
you have to, and I suggest, this is me personally, get 2 editors.
At least.
At least 2 editors, because I think my first book had 13 mistakes. Second, each book.
And we all go through that.
Right.
With your initial book, you go through that because you're thinking, I know for me, for my first book, I had a good friend of mine, a co-worker, edit for me. And there was so many different mistakes, a lot of different mistakes. So when I went back again to do my second printing, I had 3 editors look at it, 3 actually qualified, people who would do that for a living to actually look at it. And it's key, because I don't think people recognize how much your book and your work represents who you are.
Exactly.
And if you're putting something out there that's like really a piece of trash, people are going to think about you that way, and they're not going to continue supporting your book.
And there are 2 editors. There's an editor for grammatical, and there's also editor for content.
Yep.
You can't be outside and say you're in a car.
Yeah. People are actually gonna we'll talk about this more when we come back. Quick break, and we'll come back with more Views and Vibes.